What's up, Legends, and welcome back to my journey through the Unmatched Battle of Legends Volume 2 Release Rumble. Now, this is the second video in this tournament overview series I have going, so I would recommend going back and watching my Pool Play Part 1 video before this one, since this directly follows that one. That being said, this is Part 2 of my Pool Play phase of this tournament, so to give a brief update, if you watched the other one, or I guess if you didn't, you can get caught up now. On Saturday, I went 1-2, and I lost the matchups that you can see on the screen now. And today, this part 2 video is about the Sunday of pool play. I have these new 3 matchups, and I'm going to talk about that now. So again, I need to be in the top 2 in points of my pool in order to move on to the bracket phase. And right now, you only get 1 point for a win. I only have 1 point, so ideally I pick up at least 2 more wins and therefore points today. And let's see how we do. Game 1 versus Riley, I will be playing as Yanenga versus Sun Wukong. And again, all of these matches are on Hanging Gardens for better or for worse. So, unlike the previous video where I recorded everything fine except the video was super laggy, these games I recorded, and for some reason something in OBS wasn't set properly and my microphone was turned off, so none of my audio was recorded. You can hear my opponents just fine, but you can't hear anything I say. So I said, hey, this would be the perfect time to practice some commentary. So I will replay the footage with me going over the games after the fact as a way to kind of talk about the matchup and certain moves and certain game states, and I think that will be really interesting for everyone watching. So please, in the comments, let me know what you think of this style of video or style of commentary. I know Sojourn at Unmatched After Action Reports does this style of video a lot, so if you like it, you should go check out his video since he does this and everything. But let me know kind of which style of game overview you prefer, because going forward I can start posting my games either as they were recorded with me and my opponent's banter during the games, or I can go over them after the fact like this. Just please let me know in the comments what you'd prefer, and I will try to make it happen in the future. So enjoy the game. Okay guys, so here is the beginning of the Yanenga Sun Wukong game, and we're going to do something a little interesting right now. I'm actually going to talk about mulliganing right now, because it's something that kind of the tournament scene created to make it a better experience for the players, and I haven't really given my thoughts on it. Overall, I think it's good just because getting a second chance at a starting hand is really helpful. The reason I think the direct example why it was implemented was in the first community tournament in March of last year in the Bug Hunter Prospero series. I think Sinbad landed an undefended momentous shift turn 1 against Invisible Man because Invisible Man didn't have any defenses in his hand. So that kind of sucks, and they've just given people the chance to start over. So if we look at this hand, I have 2 good attacks, Rain of Arrows and Surprise Volley. An Archer card, just kind of okay, I guess, and 1 with the land. You don't really want 1 with the land in your opening hand, maybe, but the real problem is Point Blank is the only Yanenga block card, and against a deck with a printed value 7 attack, that's going to hurt, and especially if I draw a bunch of red cards in my next couple maneuvers, I'm going to be in a kind of tricky scenario. So I think I'm pretty much insta-mulligan this hand just because I need better block cards, especially against Sun Wukong. Yeah, so I point out how Point Blank is my only block card. And so let's see what 5 cards I get when I draw again. Okay, so see, this is a lot better. I still have the Point Blank, but I have Stallion Charge, Jaws of the Beast, and Skirmish, which are all really good block options against Sun Wukong. And I even have a shield formation for when my first archer dies. So that obviously I think is an improvement. Of course, I lack the attacks with Rain of Arrows and Surprise Volley to maybe do some degenerate multi-attack stuff, but I think overall, especially against Sun Wukong, you need good defenses, and especially Yanenga doesn't have very much card draw, so if your opening hand and couple opening draws are pretty bad, you're in for a rough start. So we'll see. I was about to say we'll see where Sun Wukong places his sidekicks because he's going first, but I remember that clones don't start on the board. So with my archers, I think I want to be pretty aggressive here because Sun Wukong, you need to pressure him early, otherwise you're just going to lose the game. If you let him set up his clone wall and then just Phoenix form for 3 and recycle, you're going to be in a really bad spot. So I put my archers in front of me, both to stop Wukong from maybe going on this high ground space turn 1, because the fact that player 2 starts on the low ground on this map is just annoying. So I put both my archers in front of me to kind of wall off Yanenga from an early attack and to make them be in good positioning. So he's going to spawn a clone and then claim this central high ground early. I think this spot and this spot up here, both of these tri-zone spaces are just two of the most powerful spots in the game. Right now we're dealing with an issue because his Sun Wukong is not snapping to the center of the points. So I think we're going to respawn in another one and just see if that one works. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. So I think we just play with snapping off. While this is happening, I'll talk about this matchup a little bit, just because Sun Wukong versus Yanenga, this is probably the worst Sun Wukong matchup in this box because he dominates Bloody Mary, and I think the Achilles matchup is like 50-50, but this is pretty heavily Yanenga favored. I accidentally opened up a browser there. And yep, it still doesn't snap. Anyways, this matchup is really good for Yanenga because one, she's ranged. That's just an advantage to have over Sun Wukong because you're not completely body blocked by his clones if you can shoot over them if he's in the same zone as you. So range is really important against Sun Wukong. You also have Stallion Charge, which provides mobility and 1 damage AoE, which is just really useful for getting rid of all the clones. Stallion Charge is probably the best card to have in this matchup. And what Stallion Charge does is it makes Sun Wukong play differently because he can't clump all his clones together. Otherwise, he just gets wrecked by Stallion Charge. If you can kill 3 clones and damage Wukong in the same effect, that's just really, really good for you. And if he doesn't want to bunch his clones all together, he has to spread them out, which means you can actually get hits on his hero much easier than you otherwise could have, especially with cards like Point Blank. That auto damage is really good to have on the actual hero instead of wasting it on a clone. So he's going to open with a Wily Fighting with the high ground on that archer. And I could have defended with a Skirmish, but I said Skirmish is probably better saved on Yanenga as it's pretty good value blocking, and I have a shield formation in my hand, so it's not the worst thing in the world if I lose an archer early because I could theoretically get it back soon or just force a discard. I think shield formation 99.999% of the time is a discard from your opponent because letting you get an extra archer is just really, really powerful for you. And the other thing that's good about this matchup is that Sun Wukong doesn't have feints, which means your double attacks, your point blanks, your Stallion Charges, your archer revives, your momentous shifts, your jaws, they're always going to get their effect to trigger because your opponent doesn't have any canceling. And just Yanenga is all about card effects because none of her values are super great on their own. You can see in my hand I have a bunch of 3s. But she gets a lot of strength from her card text, and it's really good that Sun Wukong doesn't have feints. Sun Wukong also doesn't have card draw. Now, it's interesting I bring up card draw and lack of cancels as weaknesses because Yanenga also has those same weaknesses. Neither her nor Sun Wukong have cards in their deck that draw cards, and neither of them have any cancels, which means that while Sun Wukong won't be able to cancel any of my cards, I won't be able to cancel any of his. So here I'm opening with a point blank on the clone just because I want it to die. I think the only thing that would stop it here is a Bewilderment. But I want to limit his clone numbers as early as possible. Even though I do have a Stallion Charge in my hand, I'm probably going to use that when he has at least 2 clones and try to pop them all at once. But you really have to be aggressive against Sun Wukong because, like I said, his lack of card draw, if you just constantly pressure him and make him double maneuver, that's turns that he's not attacking you, and he has some pretty scary attacks. Golden Chainmail, this is really good to see because the point blank after combat damage doesn't care about the effect of Golden Chainmail, so the clone will take the 2 damage and die. That's also a really good card that is not used on the Sun Wukong hero. So that was good to see early. So like I said, you want to pressure Sun Wukong and hopefully put him on the back foot so that he's losing health by summoning clones, and he can only draw 2 cards per turn, so hopefully you just catch him without defenses if you're constantly pressuring him and attacking him all game. So I don't really care that the clone has the high ground here because he can double attack me. But I have Jaws, which will be a 6 if I decide to block, and I just have a bunch of cards, so I'm not really scared about a Jingu Bang or a Taunting Laughter because I have the resources. So you can see me eyeing that Jaws of the Beast. I'm checking his hand count because he has 4 cards total in his hand. So he could open with like an Infinite Strikes and try to make me waste a good card like a Jaws early. You see me looking at that shield formation too because that discard would hurt his hand size, so it wasn't Infinite Strikes, so it's only going to be a 3, so I won't take damage, but he has to decide about the discard, and he already has a low hand count. Okay, so he gets rid of a Sly Monkey, I think. Yeah. So now he's at 2 cards in hand. He still has 2 actions, but I think if he attacks me again, it'll be a mistake. I really think he needs to get his hand size up against me. He's attacking again. So this is where something like a Jaws or a Skirmish I think would be good. I probably don't want to use Stallion Charge this early, and I have better options than the Momentous. I think the Momentous will be used if he plays like a Taunting Laughter and I have to discard a card. That's probably fine to avoid me taking damage from that. Alright, so I am using the Stallion Charge. This is a little early. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm having second thoughts about that. You can see I flipped the card because I wanted to play it, but... I'm hovering over the Jaws of the Beast now. That will be a 6 value block, which would be really good against something like an Ox form, because that way I probably wouldn't have to boost that defense. I'm thinking about taking it. Alright, and I think I end up using the Stallion Charge here, because I'm not sure what it ends up being. And it is the Ryu Jingu Bang, which is kind of annoying. So my effect will go first because I'm the defender. I'm obviously going to kill the clone and probably deal 1 damage to Wukong himself. And I think Wukong still has an action after this because of Infinite Strikes. So I can't perfectly set up for my turn yet. But I think I have a clever play coming up in my hand because the second attack from the Jingu Bang will still trigger even if the clone dies. It's kind of unintuitive, but when I move with Stallion Charge, the Momentous Shift will trigger. So I could play it on defense as a 5 and not have to waste my Skirmish this early. Not that like it would be wasting the Skirmish, because I would also block 4 damage. It's just that Skirmish the movement effect might be helpful when I actually want to like move a clone out of the way later in the game and get access to Wukong. And just Momentous Shift, I don't really like it as an attack in this matchup just because Bewilderment and Golden Chainmail kind of make it not so good as an attack. With Yanenga, you're really about quantity over quality of attacks. You typically just throw a lot of threes at your opponent and hope that they run out of cards to block with, which is exactly the goal against Wukong because of his low card draw. So he's going to maneuver second action. It's been a pretty long turn. And he's going to go into that light whitish zone, which will be out of my range because with the Stallion Charge, I moved on to that second high ground spot, which I think is one of the most powerful spots on the map, especially for a ranged character, because in order for the melee character to hit you, they have to go right next to you into those low ground spaces. So I moved the other archer onto the other high ground spot with my maneuver just to stop any clones from claiming it. And I think I point out to my opponent here that I'm on the two best spots on the map right now. So I drew one with the land. That will be useful for when I actually end up kind of siphoning off damage to the archers from Yanenga. And then I move off that high ground space so that I can be a little bit closer to Wukong and pressure him. Because Yanenga's move value only being 2 kind of limits her mobility a little bit. So I move down to kind of stay in range of Wukong while also protecting the archer from that high ground space. And as you can see, I move the other archer here, which is also on a high ground space, just to limit where Wukong can go, because I'm kind of trying to keep him in one area of the map where I can attack him while his hand size is relatively low, because I think he only has 3 cards in his hand. And in order for him to like escape me, he'd probably have to go up here. And to get fully out, he'd have to boost his maneuver. So he's thinking about moving here on his turn, which really doesn't affect me that much because I could be able to hit him from a lot of different zones. Me being ranged really helps here. So he's thinking about where to summon a clone right now. He could have spawned a clone right next to me and attacked me, which like I kind of want him to do because I want him to lower his hand count for me so that on my turn I can just attack him. And especially with Rain of Arrows in my hand, that's a really good card against Wukong because it won't deal you back damage over a Golden Chainmail. The second attack will still go through against a Bewilderment, and it basically requires 2 cards from the Wukong player to block with because 3 damage is quite a bit of damage. So he's running into the corner because he, I guess, doesn't have anywhere else to go. He could have moved 1, 2, 3, 4 onto this high ground spot, but I guess he wants to get a little bit further out of my range by going to this dark green zone. He's rethinking his movement right now. But I think my plan on my turn, well, I'm probably going to have to maneuver first action because I don't want to play one with the land yet. I really want that to heal at least 1 damage from Yanenga and 1 damage from an archer. And I want to build up a bigger hand so that I can use Rain of Arrows and combo him out. I don't think you should always go for the full 3 health heal with one with the land just because it's kind of hard to set up. I like just sacrificing my archers early, especially if the opponent wants to waste like actions and attacks, killing a full health archer like you saw Wukong did with the infinite strikes earlier. Oftentimes I find myself just not blocking and then end up reviving the archers a little bit later, which I see the weaknesses of that approach because keeping your archers alive, forcing the opponent to attack Yanenga, can be really useful for being able to use your ability and deal them damage, and then healing them back up with one with the land can be pretty useful. So I understand why just protecting your archers might be the right play sometimes, but especially against Sun Wukong and his cards like Taunting Laughter and Ryu Jingu Bomb, I often just let the archers take it because I don't want to waste my time spending 2 cards on my sidekick that I can easily get back with a surprise volley in this matchup. So I think Rain of Arrows is probably the best card for Sun Wukong to take here, although Jaws and Skirmish are pretty good block cards. Depending on what he has in his hand, I think if he has a lot of attacks, he should take a block card, and if he doesn't, he should take my really good attack with Rain of Arrows. So let's see what he takes. Yeah, he's getting rid of the Rain of Arrows. Probably the best choice here. The good thing about Fiery Arrows is that I get to draw a card after this, so my opponent doesn't have perfect hand knowledge after he plays that. And I find a Master of the Hunt, which would have been really good to draw with the Rain of Arrows in hand, because I could have launched a combo turn a little bit earlier than my opponent expected. So I'm going to maneuver first action. I get a point blank. I could be aggressive. I could go in and try to land the point blank on Wukong himself right away, because I could just move down 1 space next to him. Or I could play it a little bit safer and just try to get a couple more cards in my hand for Master of the Hunt to have a really good turn coming up. I can tell I'm really thinking about this right now. I also could try to get rid of that clone, but with only 3 cards in his hand, I think the focus right now should be on the actual hero of Wukong. Let's see if I can fast forward to when I actually start doing something. And of course, as soon as I say that, my mouse starts moving around. I'm moving my archer back to that special high ground spot. And I'm moving Yanenga up to that high ground spot. I'm claiming the 2 best spots on the board. And I'm going to maneuver again. You love to see that surprise volley because it's a guaranteed archer back because Wukong doesn't have any cancels. And it can also be used to gain an action, which I think is really good in this matchup because it just gets another block card out of your opponent's hand. So you can see I'm building up a combo here with Master of the Hunt and Surprise Volley in my hand, and I think I'm just going to stay on the high ground for now and kind of see what my opponent does, because I'm like a rain of arrows away from having a bunch of attacks on 1 turn. So he's going to summon a clone. Pretty good option. You want as many clones as possible at all times generally. And he's going to kind of challenge my archer for that center high ground spot. This blue spot on the board where Wukong is one of the best spots for a melee fighter on this map, just because this is solid blue. It's only a part of 1 zone. And this high ground spot that I'm currently on does not have blue on it. It has this gray, this light green, and this dark green, which means a ranged hero camping on this spot can't hit someone sitting right there. So I point out here that he moved this clone 1, 2, 3 spaces because he originally had both clones here, which was a little too far for him, so he has to correct that movement really. But this spot is a really good kind of like counter spot for ranged heroes sitting on this spot, because they have to come down to hit you, and then you could potentially be in a double attack. You could set yourself up for a double attack turn, which is very nice. This spot, not so good when the opponent is on this high ground spot, but if there's a ranged hero camping right here, just know that this spot is very powerful. It's either this spot or this spot, I think, are good against it. Because if you're here, they could just move 2 and then have high ground against you. So think about this spot or this spot. This spot is probably a little bit better for move 3 characters because they can go 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, whereas this spot better for move 2 characters who can't reach this spot from here, so you can just go here. This spot is also in the center of the board, which I really like, because if your opponent actually ends up going to this side of the map, you're in a little bit better position than on this side. As much as I dislike this map, just because the high ground spots give you much more to think about, and the zone layouts are kind of confusing, I do find it very interesting. I enjoy playing on it, despite me not necessarily wanting to commit half of my brain to the intricacies and complexities of this map. So my opponent attacked the archer, and it was a Ryu Jingu Bang. Again, I don't like blocking my archers, which is nice when it turns out being like that, because I could have played a skirmish to block. That's the only any block card I have in my hand, and that would have been completely wasted on that Jingu Bang. So you gotta learn to take undefended hits against Sun Wukong, because if you block everything, you're just going to have a bad time. Taunting Laughter, Jingu Bang, and even Infinite Strikes, like just blocking those feels kind of bad. That is to say, on your hero, you typically want to block a little bit, but especially on sidekicks, I think it's fine if you just take some undefended hits, because if Sun Wukong is going to waste all his decent attacks attacking your sidekick, you can kind of live with that, especially until your opponent plays a bunch of Jingu Bangs. Like, you generally, I'm going to pause it here because I'm about to do something cool, but you generally don't need to block every attack. But now that I've seen him play 2, I know that if I start taking undefended hits, it's actually probably going to be something that will end up dealing me damage. So I'm going to maneuver first action on my turn, and the Rain of Arrows draw is really good here, because that means that my action combo turn is in prime form right now. So I'm going to maneuver down right next to him, and then play Master of the Hunt for 2 more actions, and my opponent has 3 cards in his hand. Really, the only thing that could stop him, or stop me, I should say, is a Bewilderment, because that will move him out of the zone and kind of end my attack chain. Because even if it's a Sly Monkey, he's in solid blue, which means the only place he could go right now is here, because this is the other blue space, and I'd still be in the same zone as him to attack him. I think this space is light green, gray, and blue that I'm in, so I still am covering a large portion of the board. So there's the Master of the Hunt, so I have 2 more actions. I'm going to bust out the double attack. Technically first action, because I have 2 actions now. So with 3 cards in hand, this is going to be pretty good. So what's he going to block with? He's going to block with a Wily, so I'll take 1. He'll completely block the 3, but now he has 2 cards, and I'm attacking him again with a 3, and I have another action after this. So Wily Fighting will hit both the Archer and Yanenga, so they'll both take 1 damage. And he's just going to take the second attack of Rain of Arrows. So he has 9 health, 2 cards. I still have an action. So this is where I like playing Surprise Volley for the action and not the Archer. And something I can do here is I can attack him with the Archer, because Surprise Volley is an any card. So I'll get the high ground bonus. So I flip this over. It's now a 4 value attack that he's just taking to the face, and I will use it to gain an action. So I'm not sure if him not blocking is indicative of him not having any block cards in his hand, or him just saving his best block card. Although I think if you have a block, you probably play it there, which means I can throw out a skirmish that with the high ground will be 5 damage. And if he doesn't have any blocks, it'll be lethal, which is exactly what he ended up having. He ended up having no block cards. I'm not sure if he shows us his hand after this or not, but that's just a great example of how Yanenga is very quantity over quality. I essentially attacked him 4 times that turn with the double attack, the Surprise Volley, and the skirmish. Show us your hand. Show us your hand. Show us your hand. Show us your hand. He can't hear me. I don't know what he's doing. There's his bewilderment. Show us your hand. Show us your hand. Show us your hand. I could just skip forward and try to see. All right, we'll put this on double speed and see if he shows us his hand. All right, 5 times speed. 5 times speed. Is he going to show us his hand? I'm not sure if he's going to show us his hand. There's my hand. Okay. We're just going to end this game here because I don't want to waste any more time. Nice. I got my second win. Again, that is a pretty Yanenga favored matchup, but I'll take what I can get. You got to give me some credit. So for game 2, I am not going to go over the footage just because this matchup is one of the most one-sided matchups you can have in Unmatched. So I figured just for the sake of time, I will cut it from the video just because it is slightly uninteresting to watch. Believe me, I kind of didn't have fun playing it just because I could feel the frustration from my opponent, and just when you're frustrated, when your opponent's frustrated, and you kind of feel bad just like doing it to them, because I would literally rather play almost any other matchup and just have both players enjoy it. But anyway, the matchup is me as Sun Wukong versus Chocolate Rain as Bloody Mary. And let me just describe why this matchup is awful for Bloody Mary. So she only has 2 feints, and Sun Wukong has a lot of annoying attacks like Infinite Strikes or Ryu Jingubang or Taunting Laughter, and cards like 72 Transformations that you want to feint as much as possible. But Bloody Mary only has 2 feints, which means her opportunities to do that are very limited. Bloody Mary also has no AoE. It would be really nice if she had a Wily Fighting or something like Broken Glass that just hit multiple targets, but she only has single target damage, so she has to brute force her way through the clones individually, which means Sun Wukong can take advantage of the fact that Bloody Mary is a solo and melee hero and just make a clone wall to block her off, which is exactly what I did in this game. I think Bloody Mary only actually attacked Sun Wukong maybe twice the entire game. And when Bloody Mary actually does get to Sun Wukong and can attack him, especially if she has big juicy attacks like Speak 3 times if it's her third action or Jump Scare, Sun Wukong has cards like Bewilderment and Golden Chainmail that just completely wreck any hope of Bloody Mary doing damage to you. And aside from the 2 random discards and the Stolen Memories, which is kind of like a forced discard that Sun Wukong can choose to avoid, Bloody Mary doesn't really have any ways, or consistent ways, I should say, or even guaranteed, because Sun Wukong can still keep those cards if they're chosen for Stolen Memories and just eat the damage. So there aren't really ways to consistent or guaranteed ways for Bloody Mary to get rid of those cards from Sun Wukong. So she's just going to have a bad time. In total, I used Phoenix Form 4 times this match for a total of 12 health, bringing my cumulative total health to 29 health that Bloody Mary had to get through, except it's even more than that because my clones can take more than 1 damage, but it's still the equivalent of 1 damage being dealt to Sun Wukong. So I probably took in total over 50 damage that came from Bloody Mary. There's just nothing she can do about that. So kudos to Chocolate Rain for sticking through that matchup and actually trying all the way to the end, but I gotta apologize because it's just not a good time in this matchup from my experience. But yeah, my third win, so I'm currently at 3-2. Nice. In my third game, I was playing Hat Chowder. Oh my goodness, this man chirps and mind games like there's no tomorrow. I was playing as Achilles versus Sun Wukong, which is a relatively even matchup. And at this point, something interesting happened in the pool. Me, Riley, and Chocolate Rain were all tied at 3 points, and Connor had 1 point. And since I'm playing Connor, or Hat Chowder, that meant Riley and Chocolate Rain were playing. Now, the winner of that game was going to get a point and go to 4 points, and the loser would be at 3, which meant that in the moment, I kind of had to win this game. If I won this game, I was in. I made the bracket. because me and the winner of the other match would be tied at 4, and it's the top 2. So it doesn't really matter who has like the best tiebreaker, but I wanted to win this game because it would guarantee I moved on to the next phase of the tournament. If I lost the game, me and the loser of the other game would be tied at 3. So I didn't really want to take that chance. I wanted to stick it to Hat Chowder. I wanted to beat him into the dirt. But more importantly, I wanted to get my 4th point and kind of guarantee my spot in the bracket. So there was a little bit riding on this game, a little bit more than most games. And let's see if I can pull out my 4th win. So I don't actually have the mulligan phase recorded for this game, but you can see that my card is face up, which means I mulliganed this game. So there's that. If you look at my hand, I have Battle Frenzy, Under Achilles' Helm, Achilles' Heel, Test for Weakness, and Skirmish, which isn't actually the best opening hand in the world to have, because in this matchup, I think you actually need to keep Pat alive, and having 2 usually good Pat cards in your hand. I'm counting Helm as a Pat card here, but having 2 of those can greatly further Pat's demise, but you don't really want that in this matchup, I think, because if you kill off Pat early, Sun Wukong will just run away from you the whole game, create clones, and wall himself off, and you'll never be able to reach him to attack him, and you'll die in fatigue. So you want to keep Pat alive so that you can use his positioning, and even his auto damage is really good, but you need him to survive long enough in order to draw those cards. Also, if you can end up pinning Sun Wukong, it's kind of tricky on this map, but there are some kind of narrow single passage hallways where you can pull it off. Pinning Sun Wukong is a great way to stabilize and actually get some hits on his hero, which I think I do in this game, so we'll see how I pull that off. So I'll start the footage now, and you can see I placed Pat kind of just in front because I need him to be... you need to be aggressive with your positioning, especially against Sun Wukong, especially when you get to go first against Sun Wukong, because that means that there are no clones on the board when you start the game. So I draw a spear throw right away. I'm not sure if that's exactly what I want to see here, because I would rather just draw like more block cards generally, so that I have tools in place to deal with some of the things he can throw at me, like a feint. I generally want to feint, but Battle Hardened is a really good draw here, because Battle Hardened is really good in this matchup because Sun Wukong doesn't have feints. So Battle Hardened will never get canceled, and you can, in theory, infinitely cycle Battle Hardens. So I think I'm fine with this positioning here, just because I don't want to overcommit. Okay, so I swap them so that Achilles has the high ground, so that Achilles would be the one attacking. He's going to make a clone right next to me, so he's probably going to attack Pat, I'm assuming. I can throw out a Skirmish, which is actually a pretty good block card, although I'm kind of in trouble if he throws out a Jingu Bang. But so there's a Skirmish. He throws out an Infinite Strikes. So I can either move Pat or the clone, and Sun Wukong will still have 2 actions after this. This positioning is also kind of good because it kind of like lures the opponent into attacking early, and if Sun Wukong is attacking early, that means he's not drawing cards. So he's going to move back in and probably attack again. Okay, so he's attacking Achilles with this action, which makes me think it's probably something a little bit scarier than an Infinite Strikes. Probably a Taunting Laughter, an Ox Form if he drew it, or a Jingu Bang, I would say. Wily Fighting also would work. I do have the Helm in hand, which is a really good card to boost against an Ox Form with, so I'm not really super scared of the Ox. I think I'm just mostly debating whether actually I want to block it, unless I think it's a Jingu Bang. My opponent here is kind of taunting me a little bit. He told me that the attack was a taunting laughter, so I can use that information as I see fit. Uh, I'm playing Hat Chowder this game. Hat Chowder loves chirping in between points. So it was a taunting laughter. He was telling the truth. And he will gain an action if I don't discard a card. So I think I get rid of Spear Throw or Helm here, although Helm is a really good boost card, which can set up a surprise pin. I think I'm eyeing Battle Frenzy because I don't want to kill Pat right away, so that might be a worthwhile card, but it is a tricky decision because all of Achilles' cards are mostly pretty solid. And it isn't the worst thing in the world if I discard a good card right now because I do have Battle Hardened in my hand, so I could get it back very soon. Whenever I drag my mouse like that, I have a tough decision. Okay, so I'm thinking about it. Oh, no, not that card. Okay, the Spear Throw, which is a little bit surprising, but I think what I saw set up is I want to use the Battle Frenzy, not Battle Hardened, Battle Frenzy this turn to kill the clone right away with the auto damage. And that way I can maneuver and boost and pin Wukong with the Helm. So that's why I saved Battle Frenzy and got rid of Spear Throw. The double attack is really good, so I wanted to keep it, and the Battle Harden is just a good card. So he's not going to defend the clone. Probably the smart choice here. So the effect is mandatory, so I can't not deal damage like Day of Your Doom. That is a May. And I will maneuver. And I think I go for the boost here for the juicy pin. Because it's 1, 2, 3 spaces on the right side and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left. So I need to boost with something that's at least 2, which I think is everything in my hand but a skirmish. And I think Helm is probably the least useful card for keeping Pat alive. So I'll put Pat on the high side and put Achilles on the low ground so that he survives a little bit longer. So Sun Wukong can't make a clone, and currently the only way to get out of this is either Bewilderment, which is a block card, or Sly Monkey. So he's attacking Pat right now. So I probably want to use Battle Hardened here because I don't really want to waste a skirmish. But I do end up playing the skirmish against the Ox form, which was probably the right choice. So Pat is going to take 3 damage if I don't block. Or don't boost the attack, I should say. But I could boost it with the Battle Hardened for 6 or Test for Weakness for all of it. Okay, so I'm boosting with Test for Weakness. So Pat will take no damage. That's a tough thing to boost with because Test for Weakness is just such a good card when Pat is dead because it hits for a 3 and a 5. But and he's thinking about attacking again, which means he must have something to block with. Okay, he's second guessing that decision. So in the in-game chat, he said he put that one card out and then said, "Oh, but Pat's at 4 health," and then put a different card out. So I thought that he was going to attack with a Jingu Bang. So that was just kind of the thought process in the moment. So I didn't use the Battle Harden here. I'm pretty sure I just take the attack because Jingu Bang here hurts a lot if you block the first attack, especially if it's the last card in your hand. So let's see what I do here. And again, I pinned Wukong so that he couldn't make a clone. Okay, so I didn't block the attack. It was the Jingu Bang. So listening to what your opponent says is important. because they can give away more than they think. So I draw the second spear throw, which kind of isn't what I want. I want more block cards or good attack cards, and I just double maneuver and stay right there. So he's attacking first action. He's thinking about it. Okay, no, he's attacking Achilles right now. I probably just feint here. Just because feint is just really good against Sun Wukong, because a lot of his attacks are very effect dependent, like the Jingu Bang, the Taunting Laughter, the Infinite Strikes. Those are all really good to feint. Really good for you, the defender, of course. Um, and I don't know if I play Battle Harden here. There are a couple of cards that I would like to get back, but I think a really good one in this matchup is Brothers in Arms, because you can use that to gain an action before Pat dies and just attack Wukong multiple times in your turn. But none of those have showed up, and I think those are 3 copies. All right, so I end up feinting it. That's a good card to feint because that would have given him the Ox form back. So I take 1 damage because of the high ground, and he's going to maneuver with his second action. So this is kind of what I want from this pin. Wukong has no clones on the board, and on my turn, I have more cards in my hand than him. So I kind of have the hand advantage here. So I just double maneuver again. I say, yeah, I'm fine eating these attacks because every time you attack me, you're not drawing more cards. So I drew another helm, kind of not what I want right now because I'm trying to keep Pat alive. So I have the Battle Hardened and the Heal. I'm pretty sure he's attacking Achilles right now with the high ground. So I am sacrificing some health because obviously both of my fighters are within striking distance by keeping the pin. It's another Jingu Bang. So I just take 1 damage because of the high ground. It makes the 0 turn into a 1. So that's a really good turn for me because he net gains 0 cards because he maneuvered and then attacked. So he got a card and then spent a card, while I didn't spend any cards. So he effectively did 1 damage to me on his turn, which is like the best output I could have gotten. So there's the juicy Brother in Arms that I want so that I can gain actions attacking. But I'm still not sure if I want to actually like attack him or just keep drawing cards, because like if I don't attack him, Bewilderment can't trigger, and he'll have to actually attack with a Slime Monkey for that to work. So I just double maneuver again. I say, yeah, I'm fine taking these attacks, and I stay right here. Because this is what, his like 4th turn, and he only has made 1 clone this game. That's looking pretty good. So he's attacking Achilles again. It's probably not a Jingu Bang since we've seen 2 of them so far. And there's only 1 Ox left in the deck. He is chirping me again. He's telling me it's a 3 value attack. So let's see what I believe. I love playing against Hat Chatter. He's so fun to play against because he chirps you every time. He fully embraces the mind games by just annoying you and getting in your head when he plays an attack. Actually, I'm gonna lower the volume of this a little bit. So I block with a Battle Harden here. Ooh, it is the Slime Monkey. So I'll take 1 damage. He gets out of the pin. Creates a clone inside the pin, which is not the best outcome for me. So interesting that he chose to move to that space instead of the one he initially chose, because now he's within maneuvering range from Pat. Whereas before, Achilles could have gotten to him, but he would have been on the low ground of the tri-zone space, and Wukong could have just maneuvered up there on his turn. So I bring back a feint, which is a really good card to have in this matchup, because, again, a lot of Sun Wukong's attacks are really bad when fainted. Bad for him, I should say. And it doesn't even matter if you feint in Ox form, because with under Achilles' Helm, you can boost that up to a 6 and only take 1 damage, which is fine. So whenever you have Feint and Achilles' Helm in your hand as Achilles against Sun Wukong, you can pretty safely play the Feint on defense and not really be worried about any attack that Sun Wukong is going to throw out. So I'm attacking the clone. I'm pretty sure I'm attacking with Patroclus. And this would allow Achilles to move to the triple zone high ground space, because I could move through enemy fighters, which would let me move through Sun Wukong. So the clone dies. That's nice. I attacked with Pat, but I can move both fighters. So I'm going to move Achilles there, Pat there. And here comes the juicy brothers in arms. I think from Achilles, because I'll get the high ground damage bonus. He blocks with a golden chainmail. So I do end up taking 1 damage, but that's one of his best block cards. And he used it before I turned into Mad Achilles. So me actually only taking 1 damage from that is probably the best scenario from that. Now the unfortunate thing is he only has 1 card in his hand. I have another action and the high ground on him, but the only attack I could throw out is a feint, which is very unfortunate. Like if I had a double attack here, that would be so juicy. So I think I just end up maneuvering again and really pushing the card advantage. So that kind of gives away some information to my opponent, because he probably knows I don't really have that many good attacks. But he's going to make another clone and maneuver. I'm going to refill his hand up. He's probably going to run to that other high ground space and block me off with the clone, which is exactly what he does. So now I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away from him with Achilles. So it's good positioning by him. There's the last brother in arms. Or not last, there's the another. There are 3 copies of that in the deck. So I'm not sure if I want to use that right now, because I could just hit the clone with it from Achilles, but I do want to keep pressuring him, especially because he only has 3 cards and probably doesn't have another block card in his hand unless he just drew it from this turn of double maneuvering. So I think I'm going to attack that clone with Achilles. He takes it, so he's dead, and I gain another action. And I think this is useful because now I can maneuver boost and pin Wukong again. And I have to boost for at least 2 to get Achilles over to that top right space. And I have 2 feints in my hand, so I'm really not afraid of any attack he can throw out. I boost with the helm. In this scenario, I should say, I don't think that's the right choice. I think I should have boosted with the heal, just because helm is really good against Ox form, and later in the game when I need to move all 6 spaces instead of just 4, probably would have come in handy. But we'll see how it plays out. Heal, I think, is an alright block card in this. You kind of need to boost it up to a 7 against Ox, because giving Sun Wukong extra attack actions against you is generally not a good idea, considering the amount of 2-for-1s he gets. So he attacks Pat. I just feinted again. I do take 1 damage from the high ground bonus, but that's another 72 feinted, which I think the only form he's played right now is an Ox, so that just saves me from another big attack. I draw my 3rd feint. Really lucky to get them this early, and I just double maneuver again because I'm fine sitting in a pin like this. Because every time he maneuvers and then attacks, his hand size isn't going up, which I love, honestly. Drawing the 2nd Battle Hardened is really good now, because now I can just infinitely cycle that. So again, I'm fine just like feinting whatever attack he throws out. Feigning the Wily Fighting here is good because that saves both of my fighters 1 health, although I am getting hit with high ground damage. So Wily Fighting becomes a 4 with the high ground over the feint, which only blocks 2. So this is when I can start throwing out Battle Hardened and just cycling it infinitely because Sun Wukong does not have any feints. Unfortunately, though, he plays a Bewilderment, so it doesn't deal any damage, and he gets out of the pin, but I can Battle Hardened for Battle Hardened still. So I just take the Battle Hardened back. I put it back into my hand, but that's really not how it works. You have to take the one out of the discard pile. You can't recycle Battle Hardened if it's the first Battle Hardened you play. But I don't actually physically get the other one out of my discard pile just because it's easier to just take the same one. But I just want everyone watching from home to know you have to swap them. You can't cycle Battle Hardened if there isn't a Battle Hardened in your discard pile. My opponent just pointed out the deck counts because he has 17 cards left and I have 10. So I've used a lot of cards early, but that just happens with Sun Wukong because he has a bunch of 2-for-1s and I've been boosting and stuff like that. So he goes back to that corner space on his first maneuver, which I don't think is good because he's seen my willingness to pin him. So we'll see if he actually ends up moving a little bit further. But he chooses to stay there. And now I am very tempted to pin him again. We'll see what I do. I'm not sure if I have the boost to get there, but I will maneuver. I'll move Achilles 1, 2. Just 1, 2. So I don't end up boosting. And this is when I throw out the first spear throw because I am in the gold zone. Same zone as him. So he can summon a clone right now, which he will do next to Pat. For Pat, I could block with a Hermes or a Feint or a Battle Hardened right now, so I'm not really that scared. Although at 3 health, he is vulnerable to an Ox form if I choose not to boost it. He's going to Fiery Eyes me, so I got to flip over all my cards. So he gets to see my hand and put something on the bottom of the deck. Now, normally, you should probably put Battle Hardened at the bottom because that way the Achilles player can't just cycle it. You probably wouldn't put Heal at the bottom. Feint is also a decent option. So I think it either is Feint or Battle Hardened is the best choice here. Although putting Day of Your Doom at the bottom kind of would be a dead card since Pat will most certainly be dead by the time my deck runs out. But my opponent is making it sound like he's going to put the Hermes on the bottom of the deck based on how I used it earlier. So he's going to put Blessed by Hermes on the bottom so that I can't do the same thing as before where I attack the clone with it and then move in with the pin because that would actually pin him right now. So that kind of lets me know he probably doesn't have the best defenses in his hand right now because he could just defend the clone with that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I probably want to kill the clone here with Pat. I could either attack with Day of Your Doom and hope he doesn't defend so that I don't have to spend the damage on it, but instead I'll just use a Battle Hardened. I don't think I can boost it right now to actually kill a clone, but seeing a turtle form wasted on a Battle Hardened is nice. And I think I just cycle Battle Hardened back. I do it properly this time. I take the other one out of the discard pile. But that's going to get annoying if I have to do that every time, so I'm just keeping it. And then I shuffle up my hands so he doesn't know what attack I'm going to use next. And I'm probably just going to attack that a clone again. I'll probably just attack with Battle Hardened again. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Let's see if he blocks it again. Okay, so he's going to take it. So the clone dies. And I'll cycle the Battle Hardened again. So that's 3 Battle Hardened cycled now. I bet he wishes he put that on the bottom with Fiery Eyes instead of Hermes. that was also a really good turn for me because I did not draw any cards. So the deck count kind of got a little bit more even. Because I'm only at 9 cards, and I think he's at like 15 or 13, something like that. Not that I think they're going to get evened out. It's just getting them closer makes me feel a little bit better about dying in fatigue. Because fatigue is a pretty real threat for Achilles, especially when he gets mad or sad when Pat dies. You can just win a bunch of combats and suddenly your deck is empty. And Wukong doesn't have any card draw, so I think fatigue is kind of like I need to beat it because my opponent's deck is not going to empty before mine, or even at the same time. I'm definitely going to run out before him. So, and again, I'm trying to keep Pat alive just because it's useful to have 2 bodies on the board against Wukong, because if I didn't, he could just block Achilles off with clones, and I'd never be able to actually hit him, and it would just be miserable. So I'm pressuring him still with Pat. Do I attack with Battle Hardened again? Who knows? Oh, this is actually a really good play. So I remember this. So I'm going to pause it right now and explain this. So I moved in here. I could have boosted... Oh, I'm forgetting you can't see my mouse. I could have boosted with Pat around to the space above Sun Wukong to get the high ground bonus. But I didn't want to boost just because I like my cards and I've used so many of them. So I just moved Pat here for a normal attack, and I move Achilles into that tri-zone space to kind of block Sun Wukong from getting to the high ground right next to me. What I end up doing is I end up attacking with a feint, which is kind of weird in this matchup, but I kind of sensed that I was like baiting Sun Wukong into playing a Sly Monkey or a Bewilderment. And with a Bewilderment, of course, you can move anywhere, but with Sly Monkey, especially in this specific scenario, you can move to anywhere in your zone, and Sun Wukong could move right next to Achilles on that light green high ground space and then double attack me on his turn. So what I end up doing is I attack with a feint to kind of bait out one of those 2 blocks and deny that positioning or move, which maybe is a little silly, but I think it was a really interesting decision, and let's see if my opponent kind of falls for it. Not like falls for it, but I set up a juicy potential target of getting 2 attacks on Achilles with the high ground. There's no hesitation from him as soon as I play down that attack. So it was a Bewilderment, which actually is better than the Sly Monkey because I cancel the effect, which blocks damage, and he takes 2 damage over one of his best block cards. So that was a it was a really juicy play of me right there. I'm pretty proud of that one. So he's going to make a clone next to Achilles. He's going to maneuver again. I'm probably expecting a big attack here if he decides to attack me this turn instead of just double maneuvering. So he's going to move there. Interesting, if the clone dies, I could pin him again very easily without boosting a maneuver. But especially because that clone is on the low ground, so if I survive this, I can just attack the clone with the high ground, probably kill it. Although I could use Wily Fighting here, which would kill the clone right away. And then I could actually... Yeah, so I'm planning on using Wily. It's an infinite strikes. So I block all the damage. The clone dies, but Sun Wukong still has an action. If I was him, I would maneuver and get the heck out of there, because getting pinned again does not sound fun. He's going to maneuver. I told him he should move to that space so that Achilles would get the high ground on him. So he's going to move and boost. So he can move 3 extra spaces, I believe. Yeah, he's going to move 3. So that's all 3. So now I know that every attack he throws out will not be a value 0 that punishes me for blocking. So I feel good about that. He's also still within striking distance of Achilles because I can maneuver over to him in that top right space. So I gotta think he has some sort of decent defense card. Otherwise, he wouldn't make himself so vulnerable. Although he is pretty far away from Pat, so maybe he's afraid of one of those effects. And I'm thinking about just throwing another Battle Hardened out since I don't really have any good Achilles attacks. Like, I don't want to attack with a skirmish. I want to keep that as either a good block card or just a 6 value swing when Achilles is mad. Although with 7 cards left in the deck, I don't know if I want to ever be mad Achilles this game, just because I'm going to fatigue very quickly. So he just doesn't defend against the Battle Harden. I'm going to cycle it, I think, for like the 4th time. Definitely should have Fiery Eyes that Battle Hardened. He's going to summon a clone. He's getting pretty low on health, only has 6 left. He's probably really digging for that Phoenix form, although it wouldn't even do that much because he only has 1 clone out right now. He makes a note that I'm out of feints, so he's probably going for some sort of effect here. It's interesting that he's attacking with his hero and not the clone. But I'm saying this with perfect hindsight, but Sly Monkey is a decent card here if he knows it's not going to get fainted, because he's going to probably make me respect his attack because he still has an Ox form left with a block, and he can use the effect on Sly Monkey to get away and go next to his clone down in the bottom. So it is a Sly Monkey. He's doing exactly what I said, although I kind of remembered he was going to do that. So he's going to put a clone there, block Achilles off from there, and get Sun Wukong safely out of the way. I will just Battle Harden again, I think, for the 5th time now. Call me Lance Armstrong, because I be cycling. Oh, I got zingers for days. So my deck is close to running out, although the deck counts are kind of evened up. I think he only has single digits left. I'm just going to attack the clone with a Battle Hardened, cycle it for the 6th time, I think. Hat Chowder just said, oh, surprising. And I'm not even bothering to mix up my hand at this point just because I'm getting tired of doing that. I'm going to maneuver. I got a lot of Pat cards in my hand right now. I'm going to move Pat into a little bit more of a central position, which in retrospect I think is a mistake because Sun Wukong could spawn a clone right next to him like he's about to do, and then he's actually within maneuvering distance of Pat and could potentially be vulnerable to attack since I don't really want to waste a skirmish on him at this point of the game. But he will Phoenix form for 2. And I kind of like this positioning from him because he can't make his 3rd clone if I don't kill any of his clones. Except my hand is full. Like if I had a spear throw in my hand right now, I could just move into the green and then throw it at him. Then he'd be at 5. Wouldn't be able to make another clone. But instead we're here. So I kind of have a couple of options here. I don't really want to attack with any of the Pat cards unless I play Day of Your Doom and don't choose to make it a 5, because that card is optional, whereas Battle Frenzy is not. Although I could just attack with Battle Hardened again, because that always works out. I need to be afraid, or I should be mindful of him kind of escaping over on that bottom left path. So I think I should move Pat over to that blue and yellow space above the starting spot for player 2. But I could move him in and actually try to use some of his cards. I want to avoid putting Achilles on that green spot next to the clone because there is a high ground going to it, so I could be vulnerable to an attack. And I'm going to attack that clone. It is a battle hardened. He played a wily, so I will actually take 1 damage. The clone will survive. And that's the end of my turn. I'm going to have to discard a card. I'd probably end up just yeeting one of those pack cards, I bet. Because I'm not really planning on using them. Day of Your Doom is better to get rid of here than Battle Frenzy, because Battle Frenzy doesn't get wrecked by Golden Chainmail or Bewilderment. He can't make a clone. He's probably setting up an Infinite Strikes by moving that clone next to me. So I think I can safely defend with a heal here and not take too much damage. If I had a Wily fighting here, that would be great, but I think I only have 2 copies, I think, and I've played both of them already. So again, I'm doing a really good job this game of keeping my hand count high, and I think my opponent is being a little bit more aggressive than he should be as Sun Wukong, because his hand count has been considerably lower than mine for most of the game. So it was the Infinite Strikes. That is a 3. He does not gain an action because he does not deal any damage to me. And it's... Wait, no. I did this in the game too. He doesn't gain an action from my card because he didn't deal any damage, but he does gain an action from his card because it's free. In the game, he said I'd gain an action, and I was like, wait, what? You only dealt 3 damage. You didn't hit over the Achilles heel. And he was like, yeah, but Infinite Strikes. And I was like, oh, right. It would have been really funny if he had me fully surrounded with 3 other fighters so that he would have hit for 5, and then he would have gained 2 actions. That would have been a nightmare for me. Yeah, so right now we're talking about how he gained an action from Infinite Strike. So he is going to attack me again with that clone. It's probably a Taunting Laughter. He's only played, I think, 1 of those so far. Although there is another 72 left in his deck. So I think I just play another heal here. Okay, it is a Taunting Laughter. I can just yeet Day of Your Doom. That's a good card to get rid of right now. Because... again, I want to keep Battle Frenzy over that card. Just because in this matchup, it's better. And of course, Skirmish, Battle Hardened, and the Double Attack are all really good cards that I don't want to discard for that. Okay, so now it's my turn. I want to keep pressuring him here with this low hand count. He has 6 cards left in deck. We know, or I should say, he knows that my last Hermes is at the bottom of my deck, so I can't use that to get through the clone wall. I'm attacking with the high ground here, which is giving him second thoughts about blocking. So it is a Battle Hardened. I'll take, or a Wily Fighting, I should say. I'll take 1 damage from that, which means he probably had the other 72 transformations in his hand, but then realized that blocking with that would actually let the clone die. So instead, he blocks with the Wily to deal me 1 damage. I probably just attack with Battle Hardened here again, which means I won't draw any cards, and that clone will probably die unless he wants to waste another block card on it. Not waste, but like it has to be at least a 3, otherwise it's not going to do anything. Like he probably doesn't want to play the 72 if he does have it here. Although he could go for an Ox form instead of Phoenix form. But that's a little risky because he only has 172 left because the other 2 got fainted. And he only has 7 health. So if he doesn't want to go for the Phoenix, like that's the most health he can have. I think that's what, like the 8th time I've cycled Battle Hard in this game. So he's not going to make a clone. Not sure if he forgot or if he just didn't want to. But he's going to Fiery Eyes me. And yep, he's putting the Battle Hardened on the bottom of my deck. So I think I got that off 8 times, if I'm counting correctly. He's talking about his options right now. He's saying the double attack is scary. I'm probably not going to use the Pat card this late in the game. And just Battle Harden is definitely the best option for him. And then we both draw cards. And I draw Brothers in Arms, which is a really good card for right now because gaining an action would be really good to let me potentially maneuver next to Sun Wukong, attack with Brothers in Arms, and then attack with the double attack. So I think that's what I'm trying to set up on my turn. So I'm going to maneuver. And then I move Pat there because if he Slime Monkeys, I want Pat to be able to hit him with the double attack. But this is kind of a mistake because if he really wanted to, he could just Slime Monkey to that high ground spot at the top of the map. So I think I should have just kept Pat back and stopped trying to be greedy with the extra damage. Because now I've kind of lost my centralized positioning and he could just run away to the left. And with Achilles all the way on the right side, that's kind of, it'll be hard for me to catch up. So he's going to take it, which is really good for me because that's just 4 damage. And I get another action. So I'm pretty sure he has some kind of small crappy defense in his hand. But I'm still probably going to attack with the double attack here because if he blocks, the 3 will go through and that'll be really cool. So he was pretty sure it was the double attack, which it was. I'm not going to boost the 1 value attack over the turtle, but... And he has to waste... He said he had to waste that card to not lose the game, which means he probably doesn't have any block cards left in his hand, which was a little surprising to me. Or not that the fact that he doesn't have any blocks left is surprising, but the fact that he had like 2 pretty good blocks in his hand. I didn't really suspect that. And he's just going to run away right now because he is relying on his deck to survive. And I realize now Pat is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces away right now. And I just drew a helm. If I had kept Pat 2 spaces to the left, he would have been within 6 spaces, and I could have boosted with the helm I just drew and actually attacked him with like Battle Frenzy, and that would have been a pretty nice option to have, especially because he is relying on his deck to just give him a defense card out of the 2 cards that he just drew, and he still might not have one. So I think, like I said before, being greedy with that Pat positioning kind of hurt me here. I should have just kept him back instead of trying to guarantee that the double attack would land, which it wouldn't even guarantee because, like I said, he could have just teleported to the high ground space that Pat wasn't adjacent to. So I'm going to move Achilles in and probably try to get that clone. I see no point in boosting since I can't actually get to Sun Wukong. This is kind of risky to put Pat there because if I don't kill the clone could maneuver up and attack Pat with the high ground. So I really hope he blocks here because he's probably not going to spend a second block. So he's going to block with a 72. So he grabs a tortoise form back, probably because the 72 is the only block card in his hand. And the clone's going to take the second hit. So that's really good. That means he has no more healing left because he doesn't have any 72s. He makes a mistake here. He thinks I have a spear throw left in my deck, so he doesn't want to make a clone, whereas I've actually already played both of them. So he's just going to swing in with Sun Wukong with the high ground against Achilles. It's a Sly Monkey, which is really annoying because I would have loved to have moved Pat in and attacked. I could have moved Pat 2 spaces and then been able to attack Sun Wukong with the high ground on my turn, but the Sly Monkey is a good attack choice by him. So my skirmish effect goes through because I won the combat, 3 versus a 4, and I get to move one of us up to 2 spaces before his Sly Monkey triggers. So I was thinking about this a lot. I wasn't sure whether to move me or him. I didn't want to move me because I didn't want to lose any positioning, but there wasn't really anywhere I could move him where he'd still remain close to me, because right now he can only move around in that golden zone. If I moved him up to the blue or the brown or the pink or the brown, green, and blue zone, he could move a lot more spaces on the map. So I think I just come to the conclusion that leaving us both where we are is probably the best choice to limit where he can jump around to. And in my hand, I have a Helm and a Battle Frenzy left, which I probably want other cards. I think I have a handful of Versatiles left in my deck. We know that Hermes and the Battle Hardened are at the bottom of my deck, but I think all of my Handshake cards are gone and all of my double attack cards are gone. So I'll maneuver. There's a Wily Fighting. That's going to be useful to get rid of that clone. Although the auto damage itself might just be useful on Wukong, because if I can land both the Wily Fighting and the Battle Frenzy, that's just 3 damage, and Wukong doesn't have any healing left because Phoenix Form is in his discard pile and he's already played all 3 72 transformations. So I have a clear victory condition in sight. I only have 2 cards left in my deck though, so I kind of got to start making it happen soon before my my deck runs out and I slowly succumb to fatigue. I can tell I'm really thinking about this decision right now because the positioning is kind of annoying, just because this is how Sun Wukong plays. He just uses his clones as meat shields, and you don't really get that many attack opportunities on him. So I move Pat up there to kind of contain Sun Wukong. I'm trying to limit where he can move to, and I'm actually using the Wily Fighting on the clone just to limit the amount of body blockers he has available to him. He probably shouldn't defend it, which he doesn't, because that clone was going to die either way since Wukong doesn't have any feints. And now it's his turn. He's still not going to make a clone, and his deck has run out, which is really convenient for me. So wow, earlier this video I said there's no way his deck is emptying before mine. I guess that happens when when you cycle Battle Hardened. So he's swinging on Pat right now, and I actually can't block this attack. So Pat is probably going to die, and I'm going to lose both of the cards in my hand, which is fine because they are not good to have once Pat is dead. So I'm actually really fine with this random discard happening. So he plays a Taunting Laughter, and I lose both my Frenzy and my Helm, which I'm sure he's not too thrilled about. So I'm pretty sure the last 2 cards in his hand are the Tortoise Form he got back with 72, and I don't think we ever saw that second Ox Form, if I remember correctly. And I have 2 cards left in my deck, so we know exactly what those are. Although he has to maneuver on his turn, so he's going to die to fatigue. So I drew the Hermes, then the Battle Hardened, and he has to double maneuver, which will kill him. So that was a good game. So Wukong can be pretty aggressive against... not aggressive. Wukong can be pretty oppressive against melee fighters because his clone wall can be annoying, and fighters that don't have a lot of AoE or action gaining or movement effects to get around or through those clones can have a tough time because they just will never be able to deal damage to Sun Wukong's hero, and he'll just outlast them, especially with all the 2-for-1 cards he has. But this is an example of how you can actually beat Sun Wukong, and that is with good positioning and aggression, because if you pin him, he can't make any clones. I probably pinned him for like 4 or 5 turns total this game. That definitely helped slow him down. And just card draw. Try to draw more than him. You have to take some attacks, and he got some high ground attacks on me, on Achilles specifically, while I had him pinned and was just double maneuvering. But he was using more cards than I was, and that led me to get an advantage, and eventually he had to take undefended attacks like that brother in arms he took late in the game. That was a nice 4 damage on his hero, if I remember that correctly. The other thing you have to do is you have to leverage your card effects against him because he doesn't have any cancels. So this is probably like the best example of that, but just cycling Battle Hardened on him. I got that off like 8 times, which he didn't defend everyone. He probably defended like 2 or 3, but that's still like 4 or 5 just clone deaths that happened for free, essentially. And that was also really good because that was a way to avoid me having to draw cards, which is actually how we got those deck counts even in the late game. And he actually reached fatigue before me. I think if Pat dies at any point before the last turn of the game, essentially, I will reach fatigue in this matchup like every single time. But keeping Pat alive to the end of the game actually helped me avoid having my deck run out. And Pat's positioning, of course, was crucial for the pins and whatnot this game. So I hope you enjoyed this post-match commentary. Video recording baked goods, back to you. This is Commentary Goods, signing off. Nice. So I won that game, giving me my 4th point from my 4th win, and that means I am guaranteed to move on to the next round of the tournament, which will be the bracket phase, which is really exciting. I'm going to keep that in because that was really funny. Which is really exciting because I started on Saturday 1-2 and came back to be 4-2 now. So I just want to give a brief summary of the pool just to let everyone know what else happened. Chocolate Rain won the game between him and Riley, giving him his 4th point, which means we both are moving on to the bracket as the top 2 from this pool. Chocolate Rain actually ended up winning the pool because through a series of tiebreakers, at the beginning of the tournament, we each had to guess the win rate of one of the heroes, and Chocolate Rain's guess was a lot closer than mine was because I just made a really bad guess. We're not going to talk about it. It never happened. But honestly, Connor, Riley, and Chocolate Rain were all very good players and very awesome opponents. I just had a lot of fun playing them. They were nice to talk to. They were friendly. We got some good banter in. We were able to talk about the game a lot. It was just a really pleasant experience, and I'm so glad that these were the 3 other players in my pool because honestly, I had a really good time. So that's it for the pool play phase. I'll start with the bracket videos. In moving on from here, I'm gonna be playing Darkblade next. Spoiler alert: I'm making this video after the fact. I know who my opponent is, so in the round of 16, which there are 16 players in the bracket, I will be playing Darkblade, who is a really solid player. He did pretty well in Summer of Legends, so that'll be an interesting first round of the bracket matchup. So I hope you enjoyed the 2 games I showcased with commentary. Again, please let me know in the comments what you think of them, and moving forward, I'll try to keep that feedback in mind when I'm posting gameplay videos like this. So that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully you guys are enjoying my coverage of this tournament and you like seeing me progress and my games, and hopefully, again, you found them entertaining. As always, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and all hail Phoenix Form. Goodbye, guys. Yeet!